Please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ashley, can I have roll call, please?
Cavalier.
Here.
Kressel.
Here.
Clot.
Here.
Menard.
Here.
Hibma.
Here.
Jurdy.
Here.
Fisher.
Here.
Briggs.
Okay, it's time for the open forum. If anyone would like to address the council on any issue not already on tonight's agenda, may come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please. This regarding the public hearing?
It's regard to an issue that I'd like the council
Sure.
to address. My name's Alice Oseth. I live at 615 Stephens Drive, number 6. And does Rodney Abrahamson still own the old Patty and Ball?
Don't know.
Nobody knows? Or, well, you know, I drive out to Happy Joe's when I come back in, and it looks just like a junk pile, all those old cars. And how is that allowed on that property when if I was a homeowner and had a junk car in my yard, the city would tell me to remove it? And it looks bad, even for people that come to town. I mean, it's never cleaned up. So is there some way for the city to address that?
We can have our building inspector and our Public Works Director look into it and see what we can do.
Okay, that would be appreciated. The second question is, when are you going to do the street improvement over by the old bank? And when's that bank going to be demolished? You know, where the orange cones are? where you
Tri
have-
Valley Building,
Yeah,
that is in the process. We're looking at different options, some grant dollars. I think it's part of our corridor study too, that we are gonna redo our corridors in 2027, but we're looking to find answers with that building prior to redoing our corridors.
okay. And does anybody know if anybody's been interested in buying the old RVJs?
That would be with our Economic Development Director. We can look into that, though.
I know there's been inquiries.
Carrie?
Carrie, you want to come?
I've had a few people looking at that, they're talking directly to the owner, I've sent them their way, but nothing firm as of yet.
Oh, okay. Because I just thought with Scooby's being closed, that maybe they could move over there and open that restaurant up. But it's just a thought. Thank you very much. You have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hold on, I need to.
Chad, is there anybody on the phone bridge, please?
No one this evening, Your Honor. I will close the bridge.
Thank you.
Agent logged off.
Okay, no presentations. This brings us to the agenda. Does anyone wish to add or remove
No,
anything?
not removed. Just
Sorry, add anything to tonight's agenda? Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Henry. Discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Cavalier.
Here. Aye. Excuse me.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Hibma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. This brings us to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Can I have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So move, Your Honor.
I've got Don and
Second.
Joe. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Hibma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. This brings us to the public hearings. We have quite a few tonight. I know we're gonna have some good discussion on it, so if you wanna come up and address the council, we're gonna limit each one to 5 minutes. So that way everybody's got a chance to speak, and so, thank you.
Item 7.01 is a public hearing on the project located at Houston Avenue, Hunter Street, South Ash Street. It's a local project by Street Reconstruction. This project has an estimated cost of $637,110, with a portion of the amount to be assessed for street improvements being $152,211, for sidewalks in the amount of $64,870, and a contingency of $63,711, equaling $280,792, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll open this public hearing. Does anyone wish to address the council? Please come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please. I forgot to mention, go ahead, you can step up. This is just preliminary estimates. Nothing is etched in stone yet, but we are gonna have a special council meeting on the 20th of this month. So we're just looking for input, yes, no, ideas. So, thank you.
I may state my name and address?
Please.
Okay. My name is Cynthia Ansbacher. I live at 323 Houston Avenue in Crookston. Mostly I have a question. Got one of these. I know we've been asking for the improvements, so it's not unexpected to get this letter because you guys have been planning it. My question is, because I just don't understand it completely, is the estimated assessment is such, right? Like 11,000 is mine. What's the period that we pay that off, in installments or all at once, or?
It just depends on the bonding, if we go out for a bond, or and then in our policy, depending on what it is.
As it states, the estimate is based on a 20-year assessment.
Oh, I did not see
It's
that.
based on a 20-year assessment, years assessed, that's one. Also, the city would be considering bonding for this,
Okay.
which finances it right up front, but then you could be assessed for up to 20 years as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robert Gustafson. I live at 341 Houston Avenue. Last year I was at a meeting like this. I was assessed for $8,000. This year I got a letter. I'm assessed for over $15,000 on the project. I was really concerned at the time with the improvements that were happening along Houston Avenue. It's about 1,000 linear feet, and the cost at the time seemed a little excessive. And in particular, the project wanted to remove the existing sidewalks in front of my house. I told the city that those sidewalks were replaced about 10 years ago, and there was nothing wrong with them. When I looked at the plans that were provided, I was a little taken back about how a lot of changes were going to be put along this front for people on their existing sidewalks. Houston is a older street, older neighborhood, and it starts right here. It's not real far. It's about 900 feet. It comes around that curve, and I'm right here at this intersection. So with that, there's a lot of information I'd like to put out there. I had at another meeting, I recognized that the plans that Withset had put out for bidding, they didn't have the plans ready when they advertised for bids. So what does that mean? All these projects, all 10 of them that we're talking about today, well, not 10 of them, but these projects were bid together. They all have an impact with you. Those projects had about 10 days for the contractors to get their stuff together and put out a competitive bid. That didn't happen. So to further that, Withset wasn't able to get the plans out to bid. They said it was okay. The deadline didn't get extended. So my concern was that we weren't being fairly assessed, and these projects weren't being bid on competitively. So it's a big deal. It goes from $458,000, now we're looking at $438,000 on the assessment. How those numbers break out and the particulars of it equal that this year I get $15,000 assessed. I can't afford that. I've already met with the city administrator, Mr. Reynolds. I met with Don and talked about my concerns. There are other homes in this project that are homeowners like myself that are concerned about these costs and these assessments and the impact that it has in the neighborhood. Right here, there's about 30 homes that we have here that are impacted by this. About 3 or 4 of those homes are currently vacant. One of them is wrapped in tieback. You know, they're not being lived in. So they're not in great condition, and I'm looking at this project and I'm making suggestions where we need to minimize the impacts. We need to look at preserving the existing sidewalks. I talked about perhaps minimizing the width of the street. These were ideas that I had, not just coming up here griping about this assessment. I recognize it was important to have the water main fixed and repaired. They've done that over the summer. Half the road is there still. They were able to make the water service connections to our house. My sidewalk is fine. I'm now looking at what do we do now? Why is it that last year I'm at 8,000, this year I'm at 15,000? Obviously, that's a lot of money. It's the Woods Addition. It's an old neighborhood. When I moved there 10 years ago, I knew those sidewalks were old and cracked, but they work. The curbs were cracked. They haven't changed that much. What I'm looking at is how we move forward, have a city engineer that can come up with ideas that are practical for the people in the neighborhood to stay there and not be assessed heavily. Cindy, 11,000, I'm 15,000. Across the way, there's $23,000 that someone's being assessed. This is a lot of money. This is the Woods Edition. I understand it's old and there are things that need to be fixed, but going about it and having us come to meetings like this and looking in the mail and getting this letter and we're going, how am I gonna pay for this? We are overwhelmed and high stress dealing with inflation. Is this the right time for this? Did our engineer get these plans out there? Did we get good numbers on them? These are all the questions I've had. I'm gonna end it there and I'm gonna say, you know, I'm not in favor of these planned improvements because we haven't got competitive bids. I'm looking forward to working with an engineer that can put a plan together with a budget and being assessed a fair price for the improvements in the Woods Addition. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Bob.
Anyone else?
Can I just get for clarification on what Robert shared with us so far? Is that accurate? Is there a reason why that wasn't done?
What do you actually?
As far as those, the plans actually going out and the timeline being extended?
Last
I mean,
year,
is it competitive?
Rich Clausen is here.
Well, we're gonna start with Robert saying the plans didn't get out in a timely manner and they didn't have time to bid competitively. I would disagree with you respectfully. The process for getting the ad into the paper, we have to get online and go onto the Quest site, and I go on there to get a project number. So I can put that in the ad so contractors can use that number to access the plans. And that's done before the plans are really even done, because I need that number to put in the plans and the specifications so I can finish those up. Yes, they had about 10 days to bid. And contractors normally don't look at plans really until it's getting close to the bid date. If I had a plan out there for 4 weeks, I don't get a call on questions until like a week before the plan or the bids are due. So I just, again, respectfully disagree that they didn't have an opportunity to competitively bid on these.
So the plans were available for 10 days then?
Yes.
Is what you're saying?
Yep.
Did you have,
So
just,
how are the contract, I mean, is there an issue with contractors making bids? Are we getting less bids from contractors, or is there?
Well, last year, as you recall, we were kind of struggling with the assessment policy as well, and that pushed plans getting out for bids. And the later we got, of course, that makes it more difficult. The contractor schedules are filling up. That's why I've been trying to push that we get this process going earlier in the summer, so we're not pushing up against, the spring.
So give me an example on, say, street bids 5 years ago versus what we're getting today. Was there a lot more companies bidding on the streets like in the past? Like, for example, in the past, how many would make a bid versus what we're getting now?
I think there's probably an equal number of general contractors from, today as it was five years ago. But what the general contractors are struggling to find are the subcontractors, like the people that are willing to do the concrete work or the curb and gutter. There's very few of those firms around that are bidding. So they fill up quickly, their schedule fills up quickly, and that's a problem for some contractors to find the subs.
Last year, we delayed a lot of street improvements because we got one bid which was really high, correct?
Correct, yep. And again, that was probably because we got such a late bid date. We were opening in May when we should be doing that like we're trying to do this year in March.
I think too, last year, didn't we shorten up the completion date? And I think that was an issue too with some of the bids.
We did, yep. We usually we want to try to get our work done really before school starts, so we don't have that, mess going on with buses running around. So yeah, that does factor in, depending on the size of the project and the timeline you're trying to get it done in.
So Rich, can I just double check on this, what you were saying? So we're trying to get out for bid by March?
This year, yes. Yep.
And so what's being assessed here is based on bids or no?
No, it's just estimates right now.
Okay, so we still have opportunity to have a more competitive bid this year?
Oh, yes, yep.
Is what you're explaining?
Yep, they haven't gone out for bids at all yet, so we haven't gotten anything back from contractors.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks,
Corky,
Rich.
can I also clarify, as far as bonding is concerned, I mean, is this normal practice to provide the assessment first before considering the conversation about bonding?
I think it is, in fact, what you're doing, these are just estimates.
Understand.
And when we get the final bids back, before we even act, you want to know what that would be, so when you talk about bonding with your financial advisor, you can say, these are the bids that we have. What would our bond rating be? What would the interest rates be? How would we move forward with this?
And have we talked to Ellers as far as like best practices for this?
We are meeting with them, I think, on Tuesday, tomorrow, to talk about this very thing.
Okay.
So I just also wanted to mention that we are following a pretty strict schedule that we were given by Ellers as well. Breaks it down week by week. We have everything filled out until almost the completion of the project. Yep.
Thanks, Chuck. All right, anybody else on
Houston.
Houston project? Hearing, go ahead.
Ryan Follett, 327 Houston. And again, the estimated assessment's 15,000 for ours. And again, and we were just figuring that out being assessed for, spread over 10 years. And so at the same time as I was here before with talking about the increases to our property taxes, which was taking a very large jump. And again, knowing that this was going on, it's I don't know, it's frustrating. And anybody who's driven down there recently, our half road, that's half road and half mud. Thank God it's got cold again, so it's not frozen. But it's kind of frustrating where these projects get started and there doesn't seem to be a lot of communication going on with that. If, for instance, the sidewalk gets taken out there, my understanding is the proposal is to remove the sidewalks from our side of the street, which is also where the curb stops for the new water mains that were put in are going to be right there. So if the road gets expanded, now all of a sudden our curb stops for the water are going to be out in the street, and that doesn't seem to make much sense. Again, it seems to me that the parking on one side of the street has worked fine. I think if they would continue that on the part a little further down, because there's mostly houses that use street parking on one side anyway. The other side, just leave it open. I think the plows would have plenty of room to get through that. There's definitely issues on some of the other houses or other streets down deeper in the woods, but I think for ours, I don't think it needs to happen that way. And yeah, so a large assessment on top of a large tax increase, that's a little bit tough to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the Houston project? Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing.
Item 7.02 is a public hearing on the project located at Euclid Avenue, Guthrie Street to McKinley Boulevard. It's a local project by Street Reconstruction. This project has an estimated cost of $547,350, with a portion of the amount to be assessed for street improvements being $233,847, for curb and gutter in the amount of $79,655, and a contingency of $54,735. Equaling $368,237, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll open this public hearing. If anyone want to address the council, please come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please.
Mary Schmidt, and I live at 620 Euclid Avenue. And my question is, there's no sidewalks with this?
Correct.
Okay. So I have talked to some neighbors, and our portion of the estimated expense is $43,322. Last year, it was $15,000. Kevin Ross is not going to sell any lots up there with assessments like this. And you want, I mean, I would like to see something other than maybe mud, maybe some more gravel. We're fine with gravel up there. But $43,322, and I'm not the only one that has an assessment like this. Dave has an assessment at 40-some thousand. Prue's assessment is 25,000. And you got Finkenbinders across the street. Theirs is 40-some thousand. This is really a lot to suck down. We were just wondering if there were some other avenues we could go, something different, or just leave it gravel.
One of the things, Kevin Ross did call me today, and he's asked if the city would consider potentially asphalt. He also asked if the city could consider gravel, and that's one of the things that can be looked at, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I forgot to introduce myself last time. Chuck Getzman, Public Works Director. Kevin Ross also reached out to myself, and then he sent me a letter he thought he would like me to read for the council. So let's see. I've had verbal discussion with Mary Schmidt, David Ratty, and Glenn Finkenbinder. Sorry if I butchered that name. Today regarding their lack of support for the proposed Euclid Avenue street improvement. Would you please convey to the City Council that the proposed estimated project cost would be a burden that I would not support as well? Would the council consider their other options, perhaps asphalt, only without curb and gutter, and 30% versus 50% cost share for the Euclid Avenue owners? Sincerely, Kevin Ross.
Thank you. Anyone else for the Euclid project?
Yes, hi, I'm Dave Ratty. I also live on Euclid Avenue. And I pretty much want to say the same thing Mary said, that the increase of how much they wanted from last year to this year is just unbelievable. Last year I was supposedly assessed at $12,000 and now they want $36,000. How can it go up 3 times? I mean, road construction, they get raises, the trucks cost more, everything costs more, but a 10% increase would be extremely high. Back in 2008, with 16 years ago, when I lived on Birch Street, they did the road, curb and gutter and sidewalk in front of Birch Street, and my share was $4,000 or $4,500 for 165 feet of frontage. Now I've got 125. If that 4,000 or 4,500 was doubled over 16 years, to me, that is way over inflation. I mean, every 10, 15 years, it could double. But do the truck drivers and all that work for the construction companies, do they get a 300% raise like they want, what we were assessed for last year, this year? And what they told us for last year at $12,000 is extremely expensive. I don't know if you spread the bill out on our, over 20 years on our property taxes. My property taxes are almost $300 a month, $35.50. That's hard to do. I've been on disability since 2010, and the state does give me a rebate on my property taxes because they are so high for my income. What's going to happen if they add the price of the road onto my property taxes? I don't know. Is it spread over 20 years? Or it's not over just 10 years? 36,000, I'm not going to pay 3,600. Or would it be over 20 years, 1,800 more on my taxes that are already 35? What would I have to do, sell my house? And I know from driving around in front of my house, there's mud on the road. Euclid Avenue, where I am, has got to be the worst road in town. And I've got a new house and paying them high taxes and have the worst road in town. And the fellow that I bought my lot from has 3 more. One right alongside me and 2 across the road. How is he gonna sell them if they already have assessments of 36 to 40,000 on them? And then try and get what he wants for them besides. He's just not gonna get them sold. A block north of me, 5th Avenue, that road was put in, I believe in 2019, the year I moved in. And I was told we were gonna get a road at the same time. How much are the people on 5th Avenue assessed for their road? It can't be this much. Or they wouldn't have bought them lots. If Crookston wants new houses built, some kind of change has to be made. I mean, the construction companies, I realize, they can pretty much say whatever they want for what they're going to charge. I don't know if there's any construction companies would do it for less money, but at 36,000, I will vote no. I don't even want the road. I was told I was getting a road when I bought the lot, and that's why I bought the lot, because I had a new road, curb and gutter where I was. And I've got motorcycles. I got to try drive through that mud in my motorcycle. Across the street from me is the lift station for the sewer pump. Talk to the people that come check the sewer pump every day and ask them how much mud they drive in. I mean, it's not even gravelled hardly. I mean, there's some gravel, but I mean, they could easily get stuck. And
Mr. Ratty, your time has been allotted. Thank you.
It's just.
Thank you for your comments.
I guess like Mary said, we just can't afford it. There's got to be some other way. I don't know if the state would help pay for it. Like I mentioned, the state does give me a reimbursement on my property taxes, but I don't know if that's going to happen every year.
Mr. Ratty, like I said earlier, this is just preliminary estimates. I mean, we can figure out different options for the street out there, whether asphalt, gravel, or we can do nothing, so.
Yeah. Well, I would think at the least it needs more gravel.
And that's something we can look into, for sure.
Gravel, I would think could get done without changing my property taxes. They did put a couple truckloads 2 years ago because it was so muddy, I was getting stuck. Before, when I had my garage built, I had cement in my garage, but I didn't have paved driveway right away. When I was moving from my other house to where I am now, I had to put my pickup in four-wheel drive to get up to my house, to try and unload things into my house when my feet and everything are all mud. I didn't have grass yet. The road is all mud. But just to get in to my property, if I didn't have four-wheel drive, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I mean, if any of you happen to drive down Euclid Avenue now, you would see it. It's right in the middle of the road. There's like a little pond. I mean, not just a mud puddle. I mean, I'm talking.
Mr. Ratty, to keep us on time, your time has allotted. Thank you for your comments.
I'm sorry, I got bad hands.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
5 minutes.
Yes. For your comments.
Oh, this is all?
No, you're good. Yep, your time is allotted.
Everyone gets 5 minutes, and your 5 minutes is up.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on the Euclid project? Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing.
Item 7.03 is a public hearing on the project located at the Agricultural Road Extension, approximately 1,100 feet south of the existing road. It's a local project by Street Reconstruction. This project has an estimated cost of $3,961,650, with a portion amount to be assessed for street improvements of $1,906,210, for curb and gutter in the amount of $149,230, and a contingency of $396,165, equaling $2,451,605, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll open this public hearing. Does anyone wish to address council? Please come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please. Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing.
Item 7.04 is a public hearing on the project located at North Broadway, 6th Avenue Northwest to Fisher Avenue by Bituminous Mill and Overlay. It's a state aid project. This project has an estimated cost of $390,325, with a portion of the amount to be assessed for the street improvement being $51,630 for sidewalks in the amount of $109,110, and a contingency amount of $39,032, equaling $199,744, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll open this public hearing. Anyone wish to address council, please come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please. Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing.
Item 7.05 is a public hearing on the project located on 3rd Avenue Southwest, Old Trunk Highway 75 to Bruce Street. It's a state aid project by Bituminous Reclaimed Milling and Paving. This project has an estimated cost of $302,572, with a portion of the amount to be assessed for street improvements being $10,741 and a contingency amount of $3,580, equaling $14,322, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll open this public hearing. Does anyone wish to address council, please come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please. Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing.
Item 7.06 is a public hearing regarding the old bus garage building located at 115 East 4th Street.
Thank you. We'll open this public hearing. Anyone wish to address council, come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please.
Good evening, and Chad, do we have Greg on? And Greg is unable to participate in person, so we set up a Zoom for him. If, Greg, you want to go through your presentation of the slides, and then I'll maybe follow up with some questions that I might have and that might be valuable for the council to consider, and then maybe the public could speak after that, if it's all right with the mayor?
Yes.
Okay, Greg, I'll let you start.
All right, thank you, Tanner. Could you show the slides there? Thank
Slides
you.
are up.
Yeah, this is on 115 East 4th Street, the wooden structure, not the brick structure. It's the original Crookston High School bus garage. We're just looking for a determination whether or not we need to take this building down. Previously, oh, next slide, please. The timeline previously that we've gone through, as you can note, I've gone through multiple stages of letters, requests for information, delays, and admittedly, COVID was a big part of this, but basically, the building was actually bought and by August 7th, I believe, 2021. I sent out my first letter basically by the November 4th, 2021, basically asking for engineered drawings to show the corrections that are required for the building. As you go through it, you can just see continuously from owners giving me individual information regarding the that there's either delays or interruptions for getting that done. I continue on with letters February 1st, April 11th, June 21st. So basically I'm to the point where we just needed to make a determination whether this come down. So next slide.
And Greg, let me just cut you off with a few questions here on this slide, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just for clarity, this building, when you originally sent the letters, was owned by the school district?
That is correct.
So the letters originally went to the superintendent at that time, who is Mr. Carlson, right?
That actually, the timeline I show is just for the current owner. It's previous to that.
Yep, and I'm just providing some more information as well. So you did send letters to Mr. Carlson as well, right?
Yes, I did.
And you detailed your concerns about specifically which statutes and which conditions were hazardous in those letters?
I did, yes.
And in addition,
basically, if you'd like me to read or reference them, I've got a typical letter for what I had referenced. I've got it here.
and we'll get to that once we get to your pictures, but you also sent follow-up letters after the school district sold this building to the current owner, correct?
That is correct.
And I want to just make a point clear here too, that we're not asking that the city order necessarily today that this building needs to be demolished. In fact, that's not something that I think the city council can do. Any decision that the council makes cannot be arbitrary or capricious, and you also need to give the owner a reasonable amount of time from today's date to make any repairs that he wants to make, or to even demolish the building himself. Just because this timeline is admittedly pretty long, because the council hasn't acted on anything yet, the timeline for repairs and remedying the situation starts today or whenever the council makes a decision going forward. Would you agree with that, Greg?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll let you keep going then.
All right. If you go to the next slide, Chad. This is basically the east face of the structure with the stucco facing. It's basically Ash Street looking to the west. And next slide, please. Now this is the south face of the structure as seen from Ash Street, just a little bit south of that previous picture. As you can see, there's a little bit of bowing to the north. This is again on the south side, so you can see the actual roof line is bowing or curving as you look towards it. It's very slight, but you can see that it's like a slight angle, but definitely noticeable in the picture. Next slide, please. Here's the southeast corner. The sidewall actually is off the slab and footing at that location. I did understand though that there was a previous bus that had backed in at that location. So at the time when I was doing the determination, I did not know that, but at the same time, that is a structural problem. Next slide, please. Again, this is the same bus garage as you look to it from basically the north looking south. This is if you were parallel to the Broadway looking to the southeast. Next slide. Now here's the most interesting thing, the interior posts and the framing as you look into the building looking west. If you look at the posts, every other one is missing, or every other column supporting the framing within the structure itself on the two columns, I believe, on the left-hand side are missing. To me, that's a fairly extreme item that we need to look at and have corrected. Next slide. Here's the beam structure more on the north side. They did correct it, or they did a change that they had portions of the beam cut off and supported laterally, that they had a beam between the posts, and then it was supporting the roof structure above that. Now, as you can see, the beam itself going across is sagging. If you can see that slight sag between posts, or the posts supporting the rafters over the roof line. Next picture, please. And then just the overall weathering deterioration of the sidewalls. This is a typical, it's extremely, I'm not saying every piece of lumber over there is in all this bad shape, but when you see weathering, that definitely means moisture has been getting into the environment, and it's also creating problems within the building. Next slide, please. And then this is a previous work that was, I don't want to get into the details. The owner tried to do some corrective action. I just put a stop work order on it. The reinforcement on the north side of the building, they were trying to replace the sidewall and base plate work. If you can look to the right-hand side, the whitish looking lumber is sistered to the sidewall portion of the wall, whereas the green sheeted lumber was put in there. Basically, I didn't have plans. I needed plans. I need something to show me what the overall and scope of the work was going to be prior to any permit being issued. And also, just for reference, if you can notice that the bracing that's coming off the wall and to some extent off the post and above on that portion of the picture, that's bracing that was after the main structure itself was built. So it's not original construction. So you can see that there's some remedy that was done after the original build to remedy sagging and or lean to the building, let's call it. Next slide, please. And then this is just a typical view of the rafter support structure. As you can see, it's just a post with 2 by 12, 2 by 10. I guess I can't verify that. The engineers would have to verify that. So, but it's very complex roof structure, and a lot of deterioration is noted before. Next one, please. There is a truck bay that's enclosed within the building. It's to the southwest corner of the wooden structure and towards the brick portion of the bus garage. It is somewhat separated from the rest of the structure, but again, it's underneath the main portion of the building. And I just wanted to show you that there is somewhat of a storage area there as well. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide. I'm just showing some charring from a previous fire event. This isn't the only area, but it's the main one that I saw. That was on a post and beam structure towards the middle to the north side. So there's a fair amount of charring and or wood and or posts that have to be replaced. So that's basically my slide. I didn't want to make it too complex or too long, but there is a fair amount of information showing that there's a lot of deterioration, a lot of work that needs to be done with that building.
Now, Greg, it's Tanner again, but just a couple of follow-up questions. You would, in your opinion, this building is currently not complying with building code?
That is correct.
Do you have concerns about the safety of this building?
I do with the current leaning, the current deterioration of the building without some rebuild, corrections. Definitely, I do have major concerns for the building.
Okay, and kind of in agreement with that, you've received 2 different engineering studies from the current owner that he retained. Is that accurate?
Yes, I did. I received one previously on, I believe it's August 8th, or excuse me, August 7th, 2021. Basically, he was giving me that same conclusion that the observed conditions of the building would not meet current construction and building code standards and not be considered structurally sound for occupancy at that time. I understand that that structural engineer is no longer employed or no longer works for the individual that owns the building. I believe the new engineer, the study that I saw that was submitted, or letter I should say, indicates that they think it can be repaired.
Okay, so the first engineering report indicated same sort of deficits and had concerns about ability to make repairs, but you did receive a email or a letter today dated February 12th, which again confirms a lot of your same observations about the state of the building. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That just showing that the work needs to be done to correct the deficiencies within the building.
But this second report, it actually details specifically that the structure can be made structurally safe, I think, if I'm paraphrasing correctly.
Well, I think when you say that, I guess I would like to see if the engineer signs off on it, that he's signing off on a letter. I would like to also see a little bit more detail, but in my opinion, if an engineer signs off on a drawing, that to me indicates that they would be willing to take the responsibility for making the building correct, and that's a pretty high responsibility.
Okay, and just to, I'm gonna go as quick as I can with this part, but to summarize that letter, the repairs they indicated needed to be done was a section of the roof on the south side of the building is sagging where a column has been removed. It needs to, a new column needs to be put in there, and that's required work, correct?
I just received this letter this afternoon, so I've had very brief time to look at it. I apologize on the training today, so.
Okay, and that's fine, but the second issue was the removed columns, which you referenced in your pictures.
Absolutely, the columns absolutely need to be replaced.
Okay, and then
I just went to my phone to look, and I'm sorry, what was the first item?
that's the section of the roof on the south side of the building running east to west is sagging. I'm not sure if we had a picture of that one for sure, but they're indicating that.
I did indirectly, I referenced it because it's referenced on the south side, slight sag. It's probably the first back, one go down one chad, one more, right there. That's the south side of the sag. It's the opposite side, it would be the sag on the other side. It all leans in one direction.
So I guess just to summarize, it sounds like you maybe haven't had a chance to review this report, but it sounds like they're coming to the same conclusions that you came to with some of these issues.
That is correct. I would agree with that.
Okay. Now, one other thing, we did have a contractor on site, on this site too as well.
We did.
That contractor, who's not an engineer, correct?
He is not an engineer.
He provided an estimate for what it might cost to repair this building and make it conform to code?
He did, and based on his estimate, do you want me to give that number?
Yeah.
He estimated it was about 170,000. Now, when he referenced that to be plumb and square, I guess I would have to be a bit more inquisitive. He just gave me a bulk number or an estimated number for the overall cost, but he did give 170,000 as an estimate.
Okay, so I guess in conclusion, I would just say that, you know, your building official saying that this is a building that has some structural problems. It sounds like the engineers that have been hired by the owner agree that some repairs at the very least need to be done. And we're probably at the point where that needs to be ordered by the city council. Of course, I don't know if the owner's here, but he can certainly come and speak as well. And if his individual that he hired to author this report is here as well. So I'll step back if that's.
Can I just ask a question? In the engineer's report, they say fundamentally that the structure is stable. Currently, even though they're requiring, you know, these 5 items of mandated repair. So is somebody going to be at risk going in to do this work as a contractor, and who's going to ensure that?
I don't know the answer to that question. I haven't spoken to the author of the report. I see the same sentence that you have. It's there on the 3rd page. Fundamentally, the structure is stable. I see that this individual said the structure can remain occupied during the repairs. I certainly don't know that to be true, but.
I would disagree with that.
So do you know the reason why we built a new bus garage is because the school deemed this building unsafe. So do you know the new owner that bought it from the school must have knowing this as well.
Is
So,
that not part of the agreement?
Was there an agreement that they entered into that?
And I've looked at the agreement, and I don't think it specifically said what the owner needed to do with the building. Instead, what it said was, you understand that Crookston has deemed this building to be hazardous, and it kind of just says, you know that this building is hazardous, here you go.
So to me, just by that comment, the buyer had to go into it with his eyes wide open.
I think he probably went into it with his eyes open, like you say.
So can I just
I'm sorry, one
No, go ahead.
more question. So we dealt with a situation on a private property issue, and my question is a little bit like Tim's. At what point, now that it's brought to council and we're talking about it now, somebody goes into that building and something happens, they get hurt, or it's a fatality or something like that, what time does that come back on the city? And now that we're talking about this, that we're responsible.
Liability.
Yeah.
So there's always a risk of liability with anything you do. It's something that lawyers like to say, is that you can sue someone for anything. Certainly, this coming to your attention now, you could be sued for it. Frankly, if it wouldn't have come before you, you still could have been sued for it. The merits of that could be disputed in court and fought about. I don't know that you would necessarily lose if it was brought up and someone tried to sue you for damages.
I mean,
but
is it in the best
possible.
interest of the city, knowing what we know now today? Can we condemn it and bar people from going inside until there's a resolution made?
I personally would be a little hesitant to do that, just because we have a little bit of conflicting evidence that I have questions about. We just got this report today indicating that the structure can remain occupied during the repairs. Obviously, this is something that got kind of sprung on Greg last minute and all of us, but someone out there is saying that this structure can be repaired, and
Is the building currently insured?
I don't know the answer to that either.
That was gonna be my question. You're asking who was at fault, or who would be, if somebody got hurt or whatever else, it would have to be go under the current owner, I would assume.
They would, if I was suing someone, I would start there.
That's right, yeah.
But
Can I also just get some clarification? It says draft on here, so obviously this isn't completed. Is this whole thing a draft, or is it just this portion?
that's the one that we got. I assume the whole thing is a draft, if I were to guess. I don't know that to be sure.
So really, I wouldn't feel comfortable making any type of decision based on a draft document, first and foremost. And also, I don't think this is the appropriate amount of time for us to have even looked through this to really have come up with a final decision. I guess my question to Greg at this point is, like, if these 5 things were updated, is that enough to feel that this is brought up to being structurally sound?
That was my earlier comment. I would like to see the building structurally sound, the items that I referenced, but above and beyond that, that a engineer, if he's willing to sign off on it and knows that it's structurally sound, and, you know, let's put it this way, if he's willing to sign off, or he or she can do a sign off on a drawing saying that it is structurally sound, I'm okay with that. And of course, when I do the inspection of the same building as well.
Sure. I also think it should be pointed out that as part of this, it still says prior to the final report, the inspected roof boards, measure of roof rafters, and creating a general arrangement plan needs to be done. So I feel this is not complete information for us to make any type of decision at this point.
So I guess we don't have a resolution to be approved today on this topic, and I think it'll come up for a future hearing. Of course, Greg will still be in contact with the owner and try to get more information, but in order for us to have a resolution ready for next hearing, are we thinking that we, regardless, we have to give the owner a reasonable amount of time to do something, whether that's take care of the issue on his own by demolishing the building or making these needed repairs and see if that meets the code as far as Greg sees it. Is that what we would be looking to do at the next council meeting?
Can we require proof of insurance?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose we could ask for it.
I guess I got a question for Greg. If the inside gets structured, or the gentleman, does he need, first of all, would he have to have another engineer come in or the same engineer outfit to reevaluate the interior of this? To see what has to be done to make it structurally sound? Because was I hearing that this gentleman is no longer?
That was the first time. There was 2 engineering reports.
There's been 2 engineer reports.
This is the newest one. It's just not
Okay.
complete.
And then if the interior is structurally sound with what is listed here, I guess my concern too is the exterior of that building gonna look more presentable than it does now?
Should be.
I did see that he had a reference to replacing a portion of the wall on the north side or west side. I'm not sure. I'd have to reread that, but my concern also would be with the roofing as well. I didn't see too much reference of either patching or repairing roofing either, so that'd be a concern as well from my viewpoint.
But I'm just looking at, the fascia, the stucco side of the building looks, I mean, I've been talking to a couple of owners that live across the street from it, and they're wondering about the exterior, if they're gonna make it look more presentable than it does now. If that would be part of the equation, fixing this
As far as I'm
building.
concerned, structure is first, weatherproofing second, appearance is third.
Okay,
I mean, weatherproofing goes along with appearance as far as I'm concerned.
All right, thank you.
And if anything happens, the owner right now is responsible for it, right? If that building, somebody goes in there and,
I mean, yes, they would be the ones that would usually be sued first if something were to happen. But I think we got someone who wants to speak.
Good evening. My name is Jay Clevin with Advanced Engineering, and I'm the author of the draft report that's of discussion here. I've been in the building twice. I've been in dozens of buildings as old or older, wood framed. And I want to establish, if I may, a difference between stable and sound and perfect. The building's not perfect, as we would expect perfection from a brand new building. The goal that the owners and I have established is to replace capacity of structure, but not true up every wall, make everything look pristine and perfect. I would argue and propose that that's not a realistic goal for a building that's over 100 years old. And so I think that's an important baseline to consider. Regarding stability as the building sits now, again, perfect doesn't mean, lack of perfection does not mean unstable. Where this is most issue is reference to rot on the siding. The siding is part of the structure, it's actually the shear wall sheathing, but there's so much wood there that even rot in the siding doesn't diminish the overall stability. It's still stable. And that is an engineering judgment I'm very confident in, based on analysis and experience on previous buildings.
So sorry to interrupt you, but what if there's a snow load on it? Say we have a snow event with a large amount of snow on top of the roof. Then how stable is it?
That surely has happened on the lifespan of that building, prior to those columns being removed and after those columns were being removed. And on good account from the current building owner, those columns were removed, quote, 20 or more years ago. I'm sure in all of our personal recollection, we can recall winters where we've had lots of snow, in contrast to this year. And performance record of a building, especially one that's this vintage, that is a reliable indicator of success going forward, if you will. So again, given the conditions we have now relative to the history of the building, I'd still conclude that the inherent stability as it is today is acceptable and safe. Now, as referenced in the reading of the report, there is work to do. And we're not in contradiction of your building inspector's observations. And that work is being documented. As was stated earlier, we have a couple things we still need to check. Our first site visit where we took measurements, we weren't able to get up to the roof itself and start poking the boards to kind of assess level of water damage on that. That's a task we have to do. Visually, again, having seen dozens of buildings of this vintage or older, there's surely rot. But again, a little bit of rot relative to the whole extent of the roof isn't necessarily an imminent safety risk. And that's what my visual observations would indicate. So there's work to do there. We actually analyzed the structure with those columns removed. And if you look up in the roof, there's actually two big giant diagonal pieces of wood that connect to the roof and then diagonal down to the adjacent columns that remain. So what's happening is that roof is effectively acting as a truss. So those columns that are removed aren't causing the failure that one would immediately expect if those diagonals weren't there. So we've considered that, we've done analysis, and frankly, our first task was, can we make the structure work in the future as is? And we just concluded, nah, there's too many things going on. The numbers didn't support long-term occupancy without the columns, therefore we're agreeing with your building official. Those columns will be replaced. So again, I'm gonna go back to the fundamental conclusion of stability as is right now. We believe that, and we are stating that as a licensed professional engineer, that stability is intact, the building remains safe to occupy, and the owner will proceed with some work, which they have. In fact, it's not entered into your record, but they do have a timeline of repairs kind of going forward from essentially today. My first visit where we're actually documenting structure was February 1, which gets us to today. Later this week, we'll be on site, finish up our field work tasks. We'll be then issuing final reports in about a week. You know, signed and stamped just as the draft is, but it'll be issued for final about a week. And then after that, the owner's starting to order materials early March, starting to construction after getting the materials on site early May, with completion this summer yet. So, excuse me, sir?
Question, sorry. Is it possible a different engineering firm may differ from your opinion?
Of course. Yep, I don't really expect that to be the case. But like all things, there is some latitude and judgment. That doesn't mean one's right or one's wrong. Engineers will sit down around the table and discuss such things, find common ground. But yes, that's very possible.
So just to not keep going around in a circle here, basically what you're saying, Greg, is that if the items that were outlined here are completed, and from what you're saying here is that they plan on doing those necessary repairs, correct?
Correct.
That we shouldn't have an issue. If you're telling us that if this report he signs off on, and you're in agreement with what has been identified, and they complete those repairs, then are we up to code as needed?
What I was saying was, like I said, I did not have time to review all the items that were on that list comprehensively. I would prefer a site or a plan, a construction drawing to go along with these plans to show the corrective actions that are going to be done. But beyond that, the main thing I was mentioning was if a professional engineer is willing to put his signed drawings or signed statement saying that it will be done to his standards, it's his professional license on the line for doing so. And
Okay.
that I would support.
So then this should be a non-issue if that is the case, correct? Is that correct?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, hit the mute drawing. But no, I believe if I have the correct drawings, the correct submittals, I don't believe that should be a problem, and with a PE stamp as well.
Okay, and Jay, this part of this create general arrangement plan, would that be to do whatever the engineering drawings and the plan? Is that
Correct.
part
It
of that?
will locate areas of work so we know where the work has to occur. The owners know it.
Yeah.
But we recognize our audience isn't just my client.
Right.
So yes, there'll be a plan to locate such work.
Okay, Tanner?
I guess, sounds like we're in agreement that repairs need to be made, right?
Yes.
And you've detailed a timeline of some sorts. Sounds like there's some progress here, so I don't know if the council we have a report or plan coming up, I think you said next week sometime you'd have ready?
Correct.
Maybe we readdress this in March?
It sounds like that
That
probably
sounds
would be
like
the
a
most
plan.
appropriate thing to do.
We're here to follow the will of the community, so.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, on behalf of the building owners, we'd really like clarification on an earlier statement about meeting code. Because that's a different sort of metric than restoring this initial structural capacity of the initial structure. So
And Jay, I would say, because he has only got the report today, that might not be an answer that we can conclude today, but maybe given to you in a week or so.
wouldn't expect an answer tonight. But on behalf of our client, we would like some clarity on what's meant by meeting code. Because the implications of that can be very profound.
Right. And Craig, do you have any issues with providing that information to Jay and to his client? Whatever those actual explicit stipulations are for meeting code?
I do not have a problem with that. I will try to clarify that a lot better than just a general reference like that.
Yeah. Understanding that you need time to read it, we get that, but maybe in the next week, is that reasonable?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Thank you. And to that end, there is a very specific statement in the draft report about continued occupancy as cold storage. Clients are not intending a change in occupancy. So they're storing tires in it now, they're gonna store tires in it in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else regarding the bus garage? Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing. Okay, moving on, regular agenda. Ashley, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Item 8.01 is a resolution approving the State of Minnesota Joint Powers Agreement with the City of Crookston on behalf of its attorney and police department.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tim. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Delane. Discussion. Corky, please.
Yeah, this is a request that you approve a joint powers agreement between the city of Crookston and on behalf of the city attorney and the police department. The city attorney and the police department need access to state data communications. Presently, without this joint powers agreement, they would not have that access, and this is necessary for all of the matters that both our police department and city attorney engage in during the course of their practice of law and of law enforcement. It would be a 5-year agreement, and the city will pay for the cost of network connection. But it's absolutely necessary. If we don't have it, we don't have the data that they need to carry out their functions.
Is this just a renewal of a contract, or is this a new stipulation that's been required?
I believe this is a new stipulation, Tanner. One of the first 2 items is new. One of them is a renewal.
Yep, you're right. One of these is a renewal, and that's actually the one that you're talking about now. So it's just a renewal of something that's already been in place.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion. Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Plot.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Hibma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Item 8.02 is a resolution regarding the master subscriber agreement for the Minnesota Court Data Services for the governmental agencies.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Henry. Thank you. Discussion.
Yes, this is the new agreement then. Presently, we do not have this agreement in place, and the city and the law enforcement agency don't have access to all of the data they need. This is a new master agreement provided by the state, and it gives information access for state, federal, and local levels. We do not have this now. Presently, other entities and perhaps the public defender does have access to this. This is a more comprehensive agreement that is in need of by our law enforcement and by our city attorney's office for court records and documents.
Thank you. Further discussion.
So this MSA, is this for like a new platform, or what is it that?
So
I'm not tech savvy.
For this one is new, and what happened is the software that the state had used before actually was discontinued, and they replaced it with this one. What it does is it allows prosecutors and whoever is certified to access data, to access confidential or certain court records that the public can't. As an example, harassment and restraining orders. If on a Saturday, one of the chief's guys calls our office and says, hey, can you look up this harassment restraining order? Tell me what it says, what sort of contact is allowed, what sort of contact is disallowed. It allows us to look at those specific documents that are signed by a judge and then advise our police department whether or not a crime has been committed. The reason that we need this new agreement is because the previous software that we had used since I've been an attorney was recently discontinued in its entirety. So now this is kind of the only option we have.
Thank you.
And does this MSA explain as to who and what data can be accessed?
Yes.
Is that basically what it's about?
It's very protected data. Everyone at my office has to take yearly tests about what sort of data we are allowed to access and for what purposes. It's only for criminal purposes or for verified purposes. We have to take that test every year. We send our certificates over to the chief, and the chief has to have his staff do that as well. I'll note that there currently is no fee for this service, but they do have a fee provision in their contract in case they add fees later, but there currently is not any fees for it.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Can I just ask one more question? So for the MSA, does that mean that we're agreeing to utilize this software at this time and that at a later time they can charge us?
Yes, they could charge us, yeah. But
And it's, I mean, do you know other,
they're not expecting there to be any charges in any near future, but if that is something that comes up, we can certainly readdress it. I don't expect that they'll ever allow it to be, allow charges to be tied to it, because the county attorneys use it, all the cities use it. It's kind of a necessary software in order for us to do our job.
okay, is this an annual contract or is this like a 5-year contract?
I believe it's annual. I don't know that for sure, though.
And if I'm understanding correctly, the police department and you could not do your jobs without this.
We're trying right now. We don't have access to it right now. We've been without.
You could not effectively do
Yes,
that.
yes.
Okay.
It's something that probably every other prosecutor has set up, if I were to guess.
Okay, so do we need to sign off on this yearly then, if this is an annual contract?
I believe that it's something that we'll need to renew yearly, similar to the joint powers being renewed every 5 years.
Okay.
And there's gonna be changes with the software too, I imagine.
Sure, okay.
Thanks, Tanner. Further discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard.
Aye.
Hidma.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Item 8.03 is a resolution regarding the Intermediary Relending Program, IRP, loan request for L&C Stolaker and Sons LLC and Stolaker Hospitality LLC, doing business as Crookston Inn and Convention Center.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this?
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
So we
Toss up.
Yeah.
Heard Delane first.
So we'll go with
Second.
one.
I'll second.
Okay.
We'll go with Don. Thank you. Discussion. Corky, please.
Yes, this is the intermediary relending program. The committee met approximately a week ago to discuss this matter. There was vigorous discussion there. Materials were provided by the Stolakers with respect to this particular matter. After the discussion, there was no recommendation up or down. I believe the committee felt that this was an appropriate matter for the city council to review and make a determination that's provided for in the criteria of the committee.
Thank you. Further discussion.
So the thing I look at in this situation is, by not doing this, what does our city lose? We lose half of our motel space in our community. We lose another eating establishment in our community, which I don't think we can afford to do anymore. We lose a facility that we can hold conventions, weddings, and different events like that. So we got a resident of Crookston that they're willing to make a go of it. And, you know, for the most part, every time I've been there, it seems like it's been thriving. The service has been good, so that's my input on the situation at hand.
So I was at the meeting as well, and the understanding was that in its current state, the answer was no. And it wasn't that it was to be put forth to the council at that time, but were asked for other stipulations. So I'm wondering if those were addressed or if you had those further conversations.
Yes, we did. One of the questions was what would be needed to put this in play. Individual contributors over and above what was stated in their application. I did speak with the Stolakers. There is no ability for other individual contributors to be involved in this particular matter. There is in effect a participation agreement. You reviewed your applications tonight. There is a plan in place to put together all of the money. There are a number of entities that are involved. There is a cash deposit in the United Valley Bank of approximately $200,000. There is also a commitment by that bank, should all of this participation occur simultaneously, for a commitment of a loan in $200,000. There is, in addition, the city of Crookston requested for $250,000 which would give them $650,000. In addition, there is a request going forward with the EDA here in Crookston for $75,000 and a request going forth to the, I believe it's the Northwest Regional Development Commission for $150,000. They all have to come together simultaneously. The understanding among those 5 participants is that the city would be first lien holder in each of the real properties and in the UCC filings for the personal property. Who would be second? That would not be United Valley Bank. They have indicated that they would be last in that particular situation, and it would be worked out between the other potential parties to this particular participation agreement. The EDA, I don't believe has met yet, but they will be meeting on this. And my understanding is the Regional Development Commission will be meeting on Wednesday before noon to discuss this particular matter. So it is all wrapped together in terms of the amount needed for this facility to continue. If any one of the entities does not agree, it certainly puts a monkey wrench in this particular matter.
So the other thing that I need to mention is we all agreed to hire a city marketing / events planner. And I think the unrealized income that's potential there is if this person does their job the way we hope they're gonna do, it's gonna even bring more income to the motels in this community. So hopefully we can get that rolling here within the next few months and start some events happening within the city of Crookston.
I don't think the argument or the conversation really dealt with the fact that they didn't, or anybody on that committee felt that they didn't want this to be a thing. I think the bigger concern was about looking through the application and not feeling it being completely viable and what other stipulations can be put in there to make it successful. And that is the part that I'm not hearing right now.
So
And
what
I
is
don't
it
have
that you
against
want to
it.
hear?
Well, we talked about like being able to look at those financials. We talked about where the bandwidth would lie in assisting and making sure that we're on par with what needs to be done in order to have that happen and go forward. If there's other things that we can stipulate in order to make sure that this is as successful or setting them up to be successful as possible. And we had some other things that we were asking them to look into. I think the other question that I had as a city council member was if we hold first in the loan, then we don't barely have the capacity to do our own financials. Like, how are we expected, or is there this expectation that we would be able to be the ones that are really making sure that those stipulations are followed through with and made sure that that is a viable piece? And so those were the things that were brought forward. And have you addressed those or brought those?
I think Barry Hansen is here this evening, or he's supposed to be. And he can address some of those particular matters for your.
And Barry is?
He is the president or the CEO of United Valley Bank.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thanks for having us. It was 4 years ago we were here in this very room when the former owner of the Crookston Inn defaulted and turned the property over to the bank. So we're now entering the 5th year of ownership of the property. And just so everybody knows, we're a community bank. We're not a REIT. We're not a real estate holding company. So, you know, after about 5 years, our bank regulators start looking at you and saying, what are you doing? So, you know, COVID hit everybody in 2020. So right after Lori and Craig opened, COVID hit. 21, we had a rebound. 22 was a pretty good year for the end. So last spring, we said, it's time for you guys to buy this. We've been under a lease purchase agreement with the Stallachers ever since we reopened. So after 22 was a good year, we dropped the price significantly for them at a price we thought was viable for them to support based on the rent, based on the cost. You know, big thing on this thing is utilities. It's huge. So we felt that at a price that you saw in your packet was reasonable. Plus, between the two of us, we've put in a substantial amount of improvements to the property. So we felt, you know, for them to be fair, we discounted our original price down substantially. They thought they had the financing lined up as early as July. We said, that's fine, we'll give you till year end to close. But we've had other people inquire. And until their contract has been voided, in other words, exercise or go away, no different than a house that you're trying to sell, I want to take other offers. That's what we came to, because we've had other people inquire. So I'm not trying to avoid your question, I'm just saying, why are we here? Because their financing fell through on some investors that didn't materialize for them. Then Corky and some other people said, hey, we want this thing to continue. So that's why we're here. To answer your question on viability, you know, any business, I don't care if it's a coffee shop, a retail, a bank, there's no guarantees in life.
No,
I mean, there's no way we can stand up here and say, this is gonna work come hell or high water. I just can't say that. But with the structure we've put before the council, including some working capital the day they open, that's critical. To have these people open up this business with no money at hand, I won't do it, and nor should they. So I think our financing plan addresses the fact that they need some working capital on hand at close. We've addressed that. The combined payments for all three creditors are less than what we were charging them for rent. And if you guys want to help them out, you can drop the tax a little bit, because the gentleman right there made a great point. Taxes have gone exponential in this property too, along with the assessment you put on the property when the former owner left town, which is fine. We've been paying it. We'll continue to pay as long as we own it. So there's things that you could do to help these people. You choose not to, that's up to you. But if this package falls through, we are going to listen to other offers that have been brought to us. And I know there's some concerns. We have never talked to the Meridian Health Group, if you know who they are. They own a property called the Douglas Place in East Grand Forks. We have not talked to them. I don't know who they are. They're out of Minneapolis. They own like 16 centers around the state. We have received some interest from another person that would like to use the property for something other than a hotel. But again, we have not taken any formal offers because we're under contract with Lori and Craig. So, did I answer your question?
Not really, but.
Well, let me, I think I know where you're going. We will be a creditor in this venture, all right? As long as we're a creditor, we will monitor their monthly income and expense. Why would I do that? I want to get paid. Don't you want to get paid?
Well, that's where I'm at. Like, I don't have a problem going forward with this. That's not my issue.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're making this as an educated of a decision as possible. And if there are stipulations.
Yeah.
And that was the question I wanted you to answer, that you, in conjunction with the other creditors, will be doing monitoring on a monthly
Absolutely.
basis.
And keep in mind, folks, we purposely put you in first position to help put you at ease, because 4 years ago, I stood before this committee and said, release your second mortgage, because it's valueless. The former owner owed us $1.8 million on this facility.
And what happened?
He went away. And since that time, the Stollikers and us have spent $500,000 on repairs. So we believe in it. We keep putting money into it. It's just, I got to quit owning it. The bank can't own it in perpetuity. We don't own property, folks, when someone defaults a loan, someone defaults on a car. We get rid of it. We move on. It happens in life every day. Along with people's financing falls through. I want to buy this house, subject to my house selling. It didn't sell, I can't buy your house. So that's nothing new either. But to address your point, all we can do is monitor, try to help them. In the last 3 years, my company's brought 3 events to this town. 100 people that don't live here, we spend $15,000 an event. And I'll tell you, these folks put on a nice event for us, equal to Grand Forks, equal to Fargo. So we believe in them. Yeah. But at some point, we need to move this property off our books.
But that is your commitment this evening, that you would work with the city as well as the other creditors to continually monitor these people, the Stollikers, on a monthly
Absolutely.
basis.
But it's a free country. They can move their checking account anywhere they want to. They can pay off my loan if they want to. Now, if I was first mortgage, I'd say, well, no, pay off the first before the second.
Well,
and third.
absolutely.
But, you talk about risk, the Stollikers, their family and friends that have put up the initial investment, they're at risk first.
Right.
Then it's us. Then it's Northwest Region, assuming they approve. You folks are last. What's the property worth? Well, your county assessor tells me it's worth $925,000. I just got the new assessment. Is that true? I don't know. We've paid over $200,000. We've paid under $200,000 the last 4 years in taxes on this property. So I don't know what it's worth, but that's what the county assessor says.
And that's why, Councilman Jurdy, that's why he's here to talk about this ongoing
And that
monitoring.
was the concerns that were brought forward, and we didn't know what the stipulations
Yeah.
would be.
But
You
that's
know,
why
if
I
this
asked
thing was
him to
so
come.
glowing with profits and revenue and condition, it wouldn't be here. So what some of your committee members are saying, you know, this isn't a bankable deal. Most conventional banks aren't going to step up and loan 80% of purchase price or appraised value on this property. I think I gave Corky appraisal, the last appraisal we had is $1.8 million. Well, it's irrelevant. It's worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And can they make it work? I tell you what, if these two people can't make this work, I don't know who can. Because they've been here for 4 years, and they're willing to stay another 4, 5, 10, whatever it takes to make it work. If it doesn't work, it's not going to be because they didn't try.
Right.
So in conjunction with the bank and the other creditors, we will have, as you say, the bandwidth to monitor this monthly, and the city's first, and so if Stollikers want us, let's say, pay off the bank, we're gonna step up and say, no, you
No,
pay us
no.
first. We're in first
Yeah,
position.
and if cash flow is tight, you get paid before I do. That's just the way it's got to be.
And that's what we talked about, and that's
Yeah.
what all of the participants in
Yeah.
this potential loan agreement would be
And you
saying.
can have Lori and Craig come up here. You know, some of the months where we had to replace a hot water heater for $10,000, we had to replace a HVAC for $20,000. We didn't charge them rent that month. We had to pay for the repairs. So some of the repairs that I'm referring to that they ran through their checkbook, I didn't charge them rent that month. When you rent out a hotel room, we got to have hot water.
Right.
So that's
And
how we
I
did it.
have a comment, a question or something. We know the business plan, and I think you have a copy of that business plan, right?
I have it in my office, yeah, I
And,
know it pretty well off the top of my head. Go ahead.
I'm very impressed in how thorough it is in the new marketing plan and all the things that they put in this business plan. I think that we can, as a city, support this and make this thing go. So I think that's my opinion, and because the business plan looks solid, and we got some people in now that are willing to put some money into it and to support it and manage it and look at it on a monthly basis.
Well, and I'll lend my voice of support. I've had contact with a number of constituents in the community that have voiced their support, so I want to represent that support with my vote.
I agree that I think it would be, obviously a loan is always a risk, but I think it would be more detrimental to our community to let the Crookston Inn and Scobies go away and to lose it. I think they provide too much for us, along with employing other community members within here. And I guess I'd rather support two people that are in our community than somebody from outside.
Yeah, definitely.
I would just like to throw out there, you know, this intermediary relending program, that's what it's for. It is for I want to call it gap financing, or if they can't get the funding from the banks. That's why we have it, that's what it's set up for. I think Lori and Craig are doing a great job out there. They were behind the 8 ball from the get-go. I mean, they take over, COVID hits. And it takes a while to get over that. And I went through their business plan, and, you know, Lori's done and Craig have done a fantastic job regarding bringing the weddings in and the ladies' night or weekend. And
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're trying different things. They're thinking outside the box. They're hardworking. They've been in this community a long time. And like Barry said, if they can't make it work,
Nobody can.
you know, and on top of that, let's say if this does not work out, I want it to work out. If it didn't, we'd never, ever have another full-service motel in this town. We'd never see it again.
Right, exactly.
And we need the banquet facilities. The Crookston Eagles is a prime example. They had the state convention here. If they needed more banquet rooms, it wasn't for the Crookston Inn, the state convention would have never been here. So, thank you.
If I can take a quick on that. Yeah, just to briefly, just to help the public understand the IRP loan on that, Mayor. The IRP loan is actually, if you look at the definition of its intermediary lending program from the USDA, it talks about specifically is when all the banks have done everything they can, that there's this gap financing, like what Corky said, that it can be loaned for projects such as this when there is that no direction to go. And the money came to the city put up, was it 100?
Well, it put up, originally when this fund was set up, the city put up $150,000, and the federal government, through the Department of Ag, put up $800,000.
And the
Those
reason-
funds were then loaned out, and the returns that we have in the fund now were as a result of those loans.
Correct. And so the reason that they do that is to help, especially up in greater Minnesota and places like us, to help us to get these type of projects to stay intact. And then I'm going to finish up, but just quickly, I know Councilman Menard and Councilwoman Hibner are on my board from the Economic Development, and our board is in support of this. We're just waiting to approve it. We have a meeting to meet. Once we know that the other funds have been made whole, then our board has verbalized that we'll be approving it. We're just waiting for the city to make their decisions. Thanks.
Further discussion?
Christie, to respond more fully, I'm Dan Rust. I'm an attorney in town here, and I also sit on the board of United Valley. In terms of being able to police this loan, remember you're in first position.
Yep.
You're driving the bus.
Yeah.
So whatever provisions you want to put in the loan document that you're going to hopefully agree to today, those can be in there in terms of reporting on a regular basis, whatever it is. You're driving the bus, so you're going to have the information you need to continually monitor this loan.
Yeah, and Dan, I appreciate you sharing that. That is actually what we had talked about. We were just looking at like where that bandwidth was coming in, and it sounds like from, I'm sorry, what was your name, sir? Barry. Barry, that it sounds like it'll be something that's done in conjunction. I would say, and I'll clarify this again, that on just the surface paperwork, it didn't make all the sense, and I think that's why we had asked Corky for those other particular stipulations. But also, at the same time, I think on more an emotional level and just wanting the community to have this thing that they didn't want to lose, I think everybody would have been on board. But I think that honestly, we're also, I think back to some of the loans that have not been very successful. And so I think that most of us on that board were under the impression that it's not necessarily that we don't want to do it, we want to make sure that it's successful, and what are those kind of fail-safes or guardrails that we can provide in order to make sure that it is successful. And so I think that at the end of the day is what we were looking for. So I just want to make sure that that was clearly noted as to what was said in that meeting, and that it wasn't that there was no comment or concern, but that we wanted to make sure that we were doing it in the most thoughtful way.
And that's why the resolution is drafted the way it is, that the terms and conditions of this agreement would be negotiated by the city attorney and city administrator to keep the city of Crookston in mind first as the lead lender in a way, and driving this bus, as Attorney Rust has said, in conjunction with all the parties. So, and there was, to be fair, at the meeting of the IRP, no one in that committee expressed any desire whatsoever that this be closed. But because it does have a financial component, we had to explore that. I think that's very fair. And we've been negotiating all of this with the various participants. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, that's very fair, Corky and Christie. If you talk to Sean Rynham at Northwest Region, it's very typical that the community banks in first, because that's the lead lender.
Yeah.
But we didn't want you folks or the community of Crookston to think, we're just bailing out the bank.
Yep.
No, you're not. Because if this falls through, we're going to sell it. And I can't guarantee what's going to be in there. And Lori and Craig could come and make an offer later on too, if that's what they wanted. So you're not bailing us out. But to step up and show that we believe in these people, we're taking the third position. All right?
And you're providing loan funding. I mean,
Yes.
I get that completely. I think for me, we already are very limited in our bandwidth for our financial department. And for us to stipulate that we would do anything and be able to provide that was not reasonable, right? And so what are those things that we can do? And if
Yeah.
that's the case now, which was not presented at the time,
Sure.
choice that you would assist with that,
Yeah.
that's where the concern was.
Yeah, for the last 4 years, every month, I go through their bank statement, we meet, we go through what can we do better, what's working, what's not. So we'll continue that. I think it's a good meeting for both of us. We want them to be successful. We really do.
Yeah, well, and we do too,
Yeah.
so.
Barry, I really appreciate your work on this grant and so forth.
Anything else for me?
Business plan, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Kressel.
Aye.
Clot.
Aye.
Menard.
A very happy aye.
Hima.
Aye.
Jurdy.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, reports, Corky.
Well, as you can see, it's been a pretty busy 2 weeks. Just a reminder, special council meeting on February 20th. That will be the time when you will be making decisions on the projects that you will let out for bid. Not to decide if they're going to be done, but to let out for bid. To keep us on the timeline that we've established and that Ellers has indicated is appropriate. We've had a number of meetings, as you can see, involving the Crookston Inn. We've had numerous finance discussions. I've been meeting with engineering firms regarding the request for proposals that we have out there for submission. And we have, I think, approximately 5 or 6 interested firms who have met with us personally. We've had a number of industrial park discussions. We've had discussions regarding CVB. We've had airport discussion meetings and updates. We have a number of things that are going to be done out there. We've also met with the individual who runs the daycare at Washington School about her needs and wants. Also met with the school about a potential buy regarding Washington School, and we'll be having a Ways and Means Committee meeting after this to discuss that. Met with some individuals about the Houston project, Houston Avenue project, and also we've had payroll demonstrations about the potentiality of outsourcing payroll. And we've had a team meeting with Ellers, and we'll have one again tomorrow. Met with the Stollikers more than once to discuss this particular matter, conversations with other individuals representing entities who might be involved in this participation agreement. And they've all got to come together, or we do not have an agreement. Went to attended I Love Crookston at the library on Saturday. Very, very interesting walking through, over, and around Crookston on the map on the floor. And it was really an interesting idea. That's all I have at this
What
point.
time was that special meeting at, Corky?
5:30.
Did we get something about that? 'Cause-
I Love Crookston?
No, about the 20th?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
Yes, you did, yeah.
We get an agenda, I guess I didn't get a calendar invite on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
What time?
5:30.
5.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
5:30.
5:30 on the 20th. We can't have it on the 19th. That's federal holiday. So we have to move it to the 20th.
Is that the only day we can do it?
Well, we can do it any day you want.
Well, I'm out of town.
I mean, we can do it on the 21st. Are you back by then?
Nope, and neither is Tim.
I'm out of town as well.
But the 20th, you're both here?
Nope.
I'm out of town from the 20th, that whole week.
And we're out of town until the 21st.
21st?
Well, to keep on the timeline, we want to do it, and this is for the approving the submission for bids.
You said we can do, you said you're here Friday then? I mean, we
Are
can
you
make
all
it
here Friday?
accommodated.
I'm not, but can I zoom in?
Sure.
Yes.
Thursday?
You'll just
Anybody
have
can
to-
zoom in
You
on
would
the
have to
20th.
just specify where you're gonna zoom
This
in
this
at.
coming
Give you that
Friday?
address.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm here this Friday.
we can move it to the Friday.
Oh, wait, this Friday?
We just need,
Yeah.
I'm not here Friday.
Can you zoom in or no?
and we can discuss it and make sure that we get it out to the public on which day works best.
Whichever
So-
one works the best.
Friday?
And we'll make sure and get it out
Joe's not
in
here.
amplitude time.
Be the only one.
We need 5.
Yes.
We need 5.
We need 5.
So we're doing it this Friday then.
We're
Everybody but Joe here,
I probably couldn't make it for Friday.
zoom in or no? it's-
couldn't zoom in.
5. We'll have 5 ready. We have,
Because if we get into the next week,
yeah,
then the whole week is gone, and then we're back to
yeah.
the next council meeting essentially. Puts us behind the timeline, but you've heard.
Obviously, if I have access, I'm just in Arizona or California. I don't know yet.
20th?
For the 20th.
Yep.
We have 5 people
Yeah.
there.
Would you have access, Tim?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, let's leave it at the 20th.
At Jeff's house, yeah.
Lane?
Just give us an address and
Yeah.
we can do it.
Okay.
Okay, so it will be the 20th. We'll do it at 5:30. If your guys are a different time zone, you'll have to figure that out. But we'll do it 5:30 on Tuesday, the 20th.
Okay. Todd? Sure.
Can I volunteer?
Yeah.
Volunteer as tribute. Volunteering. I wanted to just catch everybody before they left, because I know there's been a lot of conversations about some of the grants we're going after with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and also some small cities development grants for wards 1, 4, and 5, if you've heard about some of that kind of scuttlebutt. I wanted to help clarify that we were able to get in, there's I wish Kayla was here, she's great, but there's a national effort to get weatherization and that type of stuff into houses on the federal level. We received notice in October that we were able to apply for some of the grants. We only had 2 weeks' notice to get together with people to get this grant into the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. They gathered all the things they thought were credible, and they put them together. They're going to be asking for about $300 million on behalf of the state of Minnesota. Out of that, $33 million. Before it was $22 million, but they added back another project for the University of Minnesota Crookston geothermal, which is about $11 million. And in that weatherization package for that, we'll be including wards 1, 4, and 5. And that would include, weatherization would be mini splits coming in, furnaces, new appliances, just a bunch of weatherization, electric panels to help to update some of our housing. We're looking at doing about 720 houses, and that would keep the housing market intact. If we wanted to build 720 houses, we couldn't do that for $11 million. So they realized that we need to keep all of the envelopes and keep our houses intact. So you'll be hearing a lot more about that, but that's one of the projects that is going on. We'll submit that in April. We should hear next fall if we get it back. Crookston is the only rural city that was chosen to be part of this package, and I'm on the driving committee for that. Everything else was, of course, down in the cities where they want to put all their money. But I really want to thank everybody who showed up Saturday, because that was kind of part of that project to hear from you. In addition to that, the University of Minnesota School of Design has chosen Crookston as their pilot project to kick off. So they're working with us also to look at all the different wards and throughout the entire city. So if you showed up, we'll have a great map for you, and I'll get it put up on what's happening in Crookston and some other places so you can kind of see what came out of the meeting on Saturday. There's probably a little bit over 100 people there, and it was a great event. And we'll be looking at that to design and to hear about the futures of Crookston. That will segue into our project, which is we're updating our comprehensive city plan. So if you get surveys or you get invited to meetings, please show up, because don't say, well, nobody told me. So here I am, I'm telling you, please tell your neighbors. Keep an eye out on what's happening and on the city website, and we'll be trying to make sure we get the information out there. But we just launched that on Saturday to really get the community going. We're probably going to be meeting at the youth center downtown here on Thursday mornings at 8 o'clock, just to kind of just keep talking about it and keep the project moving, to hear from people who couldn't make the other meetings. And then in addition to that, you did hear about the Small Cities Development Grant. That's $1.2 million. That we won't hear about till probably 2025. And that will, for the first part, will be downtown for weatherizing our downtown buildings, and then also the apartments above them, up to $12,500 per apartment in general. And then the next year will apply, and that will have more to do again with weatherizing the houses, and that's only for Ward 4, I believe, for that. Am I right on that one, Corky? That's only for Ward 4, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we have a lot of projects that are going down into the woods. The other thing we're working with is to do a geothermal study to see if we can do some type of geothermal for the woods addition down through wards 4 and through wards 5. In addition, we're doing everything we can to help you get lower bills, because we know the taxes are going up. We get it. We understand that these are taxpayer dollars coming from federal government down to us. But I would hope that Crookston would be happy to get some of our tax dollars finally back here that we've been paying out to the federal and the state government for so darn long, you know. So our city council's working on it, our EDA is working on it, our staff is working on it. RSDP, the University of Minnesota. There's a lot of people working, trying to get our tax dollars back into Crookston. So if you can give us your input in a good mood type of way, tell us what you love about Crookston. You know, the complaints are a dime a dozen, but we love the new ideas, and how can we get that to come to pass? And so the University of Minnesota St. Paul, they're the design. They're also going to help us identify places to find the funding for the projects that Crookston feels are priorities. So I've got a list of hundreds of different funding available. Grant writers are going to become available through them. GIS, there's just a lot of resources we've never had access to at the Design Center down in St. Paul. So please do participate with us and let us know what you think. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Jake?
Just this last weekend we hosted the semi sections for high school hockey, girls hockey. I couldn't tell you how many people showed up, but the parking lot was packed and the rink was packed. So kudos to everyone involved with the high school and staff and Corky and everyone that was there to help out with that. We do have the finals here coming Thursday, and our high school girls, Crookston and Warroad, are facing off to go to state. So if you're available to come to the rink, puck drops at 7. We really want to pack the CSC this week, and hopefully our girls can pull out a win there. So
Time to start something new. Send Crookston to state, not Warroad.
yes, exactly. Let's go Pirates. Little update on the pool. Obviously, we know Michaela's gone now, so Andrea, myself, and Scott, we've kind of teamed up, and we're running the pool together currently. I wanted to go till February, just doing it, but we have a post out, or we have a job description out for a lifeguard supervisor, not a full-time, but it's like a seasonal position. Kind of go on that route, see where we go. But once we get, into the spring and summer, it's gonna be very difficult for us we'll do our best, but we gotta figure something out before then, as far as, if council or myself or Corky, so I'll keep you in the loop on that, but the pool's been running really well. Scott's been doing all the mechanical things, and checking levels and going down there and backwashing and just making sure things are mechanically running correctly. And then Andrea's really stepped up in a big way and helped with lifeguards and scheduling and stuff. So we're maintaining it right now. So
I will say, Jake, that I've seen more advertisements and things on Facebook.
Yes.
Since you guys have taken it over.
Yes.
So
And
I hope that whoever you hire next.
can follow that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and are we thinking that this is gonna be a lower pay than the initial?
Yeah, it's an hourly. I can't remember. I'll have to look on our website. I think we said $20 or $21.
It's not a salaried position,
No,
it's an hourly, and I
hourly.
believe it's
Yep.
in the low
And the job
20s.
description is a lot less than what we had before, right, as duties. So,
Okay.
and
And then can I ask, did you guys had a motor pump go out recently?
motor.
As a pretty significant cost?
What's that?
Is that a pretty significant cost, like $6,000?
Yes.
That was before we discussed the extraordinary spending at the pool, though.
Okay,
Yep, that was.
we're just looking at
that was
their
before.
financials.
Yeah.
That was the heat pump, and it basically,
$8,000.
yeah, it was a heat pump that controlled all the, that sent the heat to the locker rooms and to the front entryway. And it also affected the heat inside the pool area. And in order to fix it, we had to just, instead of rebuilding the motor, we had to basically cut out a chunk of pipe, put in new pipe, put in a new pump. And it came to $8,500. Grove they tried to find a way that was cheaper. And the cheapest way was just because the motor was so old, it was from I think it was from the 80s, that it was just cheaper to put in the new one.
Okay.
If you look at the wall in the pool, when this pump went out, this is what led to the condensation in the pool. So now that we have now that I have the motor running, we're getting the condensation out of the brick.
So is that the initial issue then? It wasn't just poor construction?
Oh, no, it's a combination of
Okay.
all of it.
So it's just helping out a little bit?
condensation.
Okay.
That is, yeah, there's a lot going on.
Okay.
And I will definitely keep you updated on anything, but right now, knock on wood, we feel really good about where we're at with
Okay,
running.
thank you.
And Jake, just for clarification, I referenced the website and the advertised salary for the non-exempt position is $22 to $25 hourly.
Okay, thank you, Chad.
Dollars an hour?
Yep.
Okay. And benefits? No? No. Okay. Making sure.
Just to wrap up, moving forward at the CSC, we do have Thursday night, like I said, and then we have a jamboree coming up on the 24th, and then we have 16 teams coming in March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd for our final hockey tournament. And then the second weekend, we'll have our figure skating show, and then I believe it's the third weekend in March, we'll host the CYBA basketball tournament. So there's a few more things to come out at the CSC, and then Andrea and I and Scott will be meeting this month about summer, things like that. And then I have been meeting with contractors and things with the bathhouse, so that's more to come. That'll be on our next agenda item for our next meeting. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Jake, can I just ask you really quick, are you letting like the hotels and restaurants know about your
Yes.
dates where you have to keep people?
Yep, I sent all the emails right away right away when the season started.
Okay.
I can't remember, November, December, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Jake, is the equipment working well at the ice arena? I heard there were some compressor issues and,
No, we haven't had any compressor issues, no.
okay.
I'm gonna have to look into this summer, once we shut ice down and don't have ice running, our condenser unit. I think we have some issues with, like our flow of water and stuff because of like buildup, and it needs to be cleaned out, I need to get it inspected, so.
I heard an issue like when it was warmer outside, the ice wasn't
It plays
hard.
effect, weather definitely plays effect, especially
On
on
the
the.
condenser?
Huh?
On the condenser?
It just, yes, we have it, so it's on a system, it's like an alarm, not an alarm, but a sensor, excuse me. So we have it set at a certain temperature that you can run water, or it can run strictly on air. So sometimes when it's warm out, like 45 degrees, you're running water in there, your temperatures are gonna go up on your ice, because our event and our blue run on the same system. So they're fighting back and forth to cool each other down,
Okay.
so.
The other thing with it is, Delane, the Evapco, the big thing outside, that's where Jake's talking, the scale is built up, and we need to go in and clean that, and then we need to replace a couple of pipes
Okay.
that have, over the years, they've seen their better life, because our water, even with the water softener running, our water is extremely hard on those pipes. So we're gonna have to go in and clean and take the scale off to make that
Okay.
system run better.
'Cause I know we have ice when it's warmer, we have had, but,
But usually at that time, we're only running one, if not sheet, or if
okay.
not two sheets. And you have to remember, the blue and the event rink, it's the blue and the event are together on one system, and then the gold is on its own.
okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
Jake?
Is Greg still with us?
Let's hope so.
No report, Your Honor, sorry about that.
No problem. Thanks, Greg. Chuck, anything to report?
Nothing too major to report. The street team, they will be going out Tuesday night to clean up some of the parking areas downtown. Besides that, the crew's been working with other departments, the park department, just helping out where we can, wastewater, water. And I've been meeting with residents, different business owners, just writing things down currently, seeing if I can develop some kind of snow removal plan for next year. I'll be working with the state as well for the downtown area, just to see if we can combine forces and get the snow out of there in a timely manner.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thanks. Brandon, anything?
I've been gone for 2 weeks, but I heard there was some questions on the leak that was fixed while I was gone on South Minnesota. So there's some criteria with emergency locates to where there has to be a substantial loss of property and or threat to human safety, basically. So if it's shutting water off to the hospital, it might be a slight stretch, but I've always considered if it's a primary residence that you're shutting off 2 blocks, I'll call in an emergency and get it fixed right away, because you don't know what everybody's condition is on that block. So in this instance, that was one residential primary residence that was out of town. The guys contacted that house, so there wasn't anybody there. And then the other properties that were affected were a business shop property that wasn't a primary residence. So I did the same. The guys did the same thing I would have done, and I did the same thing 6 months earlier. So we had a leak in about the same spot. It started, I think, on a Friday or a Saturday. We shut it off for the weekend, and we fixed it on a Monday.
Well, the question is why couldn't we have called in to locate on the day of so we could go to work right away when the, because you can call locates in on a weekend, can't you?
Yeah, but so there's a state law that requires that there's a substantial loss of property. So if you can't shut the water off and it's going to create substantial damage to a household, a roadway, whatever, then you can call in a locate. I mean, you got to consider that when you call in a locate, there's 5 to 6 individuals that have to respond to that locate. So you have to be considerate of their time as well.
Well, I get it, but we had a business that called in staff for the weekend to have, they had a deadline that they had to get to.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't get it. And then when he came down to the city, he was, for lack of a better term, kind of brushed off. So basically, this is what he's telling me. We'll get to it when hopefully we can get to it on Wednesday. That's what he was told at the time. And then of course I got a call,
Yep.
Started making some inquiries. So the question is I don't know if there's anything in the policy, maybe we could look at it and to see if there's anything that we could have been done to speed up the process. Maybe make the initial request for the locate on the day that it happens, so we're that much further ahead of the game when we come.
But it has to be 2 business days, so the weekend doesn't count. So when you call in a regular locate, until Monday morning at 8 a.m., the 48 hours doesn't start clicking. And unless you want to ignore the state law on what is a actual imminent danger. I mean, yes,
No, I'm not asking to ignore the state law. I'm just asking if there's any policies within our city that we can maybe tighten up just to make sure that our residents and especially our businesses are getting taken care of faster.
But is it a city policy or is it a state policy?
It's a state law.
Well, right, and I'm not saying we break state law, but so you're saying there's nothing faster we could have done?
They couldn't have got, unless you called in an emergency locate on Saturday when it was reported, which I feel would not be within the state statute of what is an emergency repair.
Okay.
Then you can't repair the main until 48 hours.
Would we be considered an emergency, like Walmart to the hospital, or?
Or if it
Imminent
can't,
danger?
if the hospital was going to be shut off, if I consider a primary residence if you have 2 blocks off and it's their main, they live there, they, you know, they shower there, they need the drinking water there. You know, it might be a slight stretch, but I've always considered a primary residence an emergency event. You know, we had a leak on Riverside on Saturday. We, you know, this fall, we called in an emergency locate and we had it fixed that afternoon.
Is that against state law? Or is that up to interpretation?
Well, everything at the end of the day has a little bit.
That's what I'm asking. I mean,
But not everything's black and white, Delane.
okay.
You
Yeah,
have
so
to leave.
You're putting me on the spot, see, unless you want me to break state law. Well, it sounds like that you probably, in that situation, might have
Are you gonna
skirted.
reward him? Like, I think he's responded pretty well to
Well, no,
this.
I'm just asking, we had, listen,
that
I
somebody's
get how
water
we
to their
responded,
home
but
is
we
more
we had a
different-
resident
more
that, a
important.
business owner that was out of business, and he had a deadline to meet, and he lost thousands of dollars because of it. So that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. I get what he's saying. I'm just asking if there's anything we can do to brush up, to get it done faster, and if not, then fine. If we did everything we possibly could, then it is what it is.
And I'm telling you, we did what we could do.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Thanks,
Yeah,
Brandon.
Thank you.
thanks, Brendan, appreciate it.
Chad, anything tonight?
Just briefly, Your Honor, after 6 months of planning, we'll be working on Wednesday morning, the IT department with our managed service partner Exogen, and we'll be simulating a backup and recovery and disaster recovery scenario. So we'll bring the results of that back to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Audrey, anything?
So as you know, we are working with Clifton Larson Allen to catch up on our 23 activity. During that process, I'm still learning our software system, but I had learned that I cannot close 23 until March 31st. If I close it after March 31st, I lose any of the data that we have put in for 24. So with that timeline, we have decided to expedite our 23 catch-up process, which means not every month is going to have a month-end closing for 23. We decided to do a 23 annual close. Going forward in 24, once we're at that point of where with staffing and everything where we're on a more routine basis, we will be doing a month-end close. We're hoping to shoot for 7 to 10 business days after the month end. Right now, we are looking at, I want to say buttoning up August of 23. So we have discussed that, hoping to shoot for a 23 catch-up for all of like our bank activities and those things before we can actually get to an annual closeout for 23 by February 20th or around that week. So I guess I don't know if anybody else had any other questions. I did hear month-end closing. I hope I had answered.
Nope, that answered my question. Just so I understand correctly, so if we close before we can't close before March 31st, is that what you're saying?
Right, because I still have 23 activity
Okay.
to record. So, but that March 31st deadline, I have to meet that because if I go April 1st, I now have lost all of our 24 data information in our software.
Well, that's a fun little catch.
Yeah, so that's how come we decided
seem
to
like
expedite the 23 activity and only do a annual close instead of a month-end close for each
Literally,
month.
like
Have
March
you talked-
31st has to be your day.
Yeah, I'm like, have you talked to the software company about that? If that's,
I have, that is what we,
there's nothing they can do to override that?
no, that is what we need to deal with.
That was another meeting or meetings we've had throughout
Right.
the last
Yes.
week.
So as part of this process, you're reconciling all the year? Have we reconciled all the year, or is that still part of this process?
That is still part of the process, yes. So it'll be annual closeout, and then we'll start getting to the audit preparation items.
Okay. And then what does the interview process look like right now?
Applications have been a few.
I've got an update on that.
Okay.
The job was originally posted on January 12th with a closing date of January 31st. At the time of the closing, we had received 10 applications, but only 2 of them meet our minimal requirements. And these applicants have been contacted, and we have interviews scheduled for this week, the 2 that met it. The job was reposted on February 1st, utilizing paid advertising to widen our applicant pool. And as of today, we have received an additional 2 applicants that are under consideration.
Can I
And
make
that's
a
for the position of a senior accountant.
I don't see that it was senior, it was accountant.
I thought that our request last council meeting was to have that updated. Chad, was that not something you were gonna do?
That's HR's adjustment. I assist with the posting, but that request was not made
So
to
it
me.
wasn't something that was done?
That's an HR
I thought we
position.
had had a conversation that you said you could update the
I update the city website based upon HR's recommendations.
Okay, so that has not been done? Is there a
It's
reason?
my understanding it was still accountant.
Accountant.
Okay, and was there a
Check.
reason for that?
Well, I think for the job description for the accountant, for everything we're looking for, that's gotta be pretty close to the senior
But it's not-
I
accountant.
thought that's what
Senior
the person we paid all that money to had suggested as part of,
But didn't he mention somewhat that with all the qualifications that we are looking at, you would be there with a senior
I
accountant?
think what we're saying is that you might have a different pool of applicants or people that will look at the application job if you put senior accountant in the title. So all we're saying is change the title, and you may have a different pool or more people
Okay,
that will meet those requirements, because that's what they're looking for. Meaning, if I met all those requirements and I'm going through and looking for a job, I may overlook that, because in my mind, I'm looking
step
for a
down.
senior accountant position because that's my qualifications, and all I see is an accountant. I'm thinking a different level. So I may not even click in and look at that job.
right? And if you're looking at the level, the number of years you're expected, that was the other part of that, as far as like really being able to like get a wider pool. And nobody's, regardless of what even the pay is gonna be, nobody is gonna go from being a senior accountant to an accountant. Just not realistic.
It's just the psychology of job hiring.
And how it looks on your resume at the end of the day.
I would also say, looking at it, I would recommend we look at how people apply for positions, especially a professional level position. Right now, it says email HR to apply, which just seems a little silly. I know there are some very cost-effective options out there that are very high, that would meet our needs. I just think of myself, if I was, in my job, I wasn't like out looking, but let's say I have a bad day where I'm just like, and I'm going out and I'm looking, I'm like, oh, that might be something I'm interested in, but now I have to email somebody for an application that then they email back to me, that I have to print off, that then I fill in by hand, that I scan in and send back. That's too much work for me. But I might be like, I'm not so happy. Oh, it's an easy application. I fill it out. I go on with my day. You give me a call. Oh, well, now I might be like actually interested. I'm highly qualified for this. It's just, again, the psychology of hiring.
So
I would also say it explains like where we are from a technological standpoint too, and that would not make me feel good about.
So are you
working
talking
for-
about the potentiality for filling it out online?
Yeah, so it's, and there are multiple different
Ways of
options
doing
out there. I've looked at them. They're pretty cost effective. Obviously, like they have like a bandwidth. Ours would be a smaller one. I have a few options that I can send Chad or think on that end, but like, just also the thought is some of these things you can post once, which then post onto our website, but then it pushes it out to LinkedIn, it pushes it out to Indeed, it pushes it out there. So it's, the HR is doing one thing, it pushes it. Then a lot of these places, they come in, you can go audit, and then you just know that hiring manager, hey, here's 3 applications for you to go in. They log in, they can quickly look through and make a decision.
I will meet with Audrey and Chad.
Yeah, just thinking that, the marketing professional job, just even when you're looking at some of the other jobs that we hire.
That job in it itself is going to be one that's not going to
Right.
do the process that we have right now.
No.
Well, I also am somewhat concerned that we spent all this money on having someone reevaluate our finance department and gave these suggestions as to what it should be and what those job responsibilities are, and we're not taking that into account. That seems silly to me.
The job responsibilities were taken into account, the title was not.
I understand that.
Okay,
The psychology of wording and how people do things, it's,
I understand what you're saying.
yeah.
We'll meet.
Yes, we will work on that. Is there anything else?
Thanks, Audrey.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for answering that question.
Well, it's a toss-up between Shane and Darren. Whoever wants to go first back there. No report, Your Honor. No report? All right. No report? That was easy enough.
Well done.
Let's start with Don tonight, anything?
Yeah, I want to thank Carrie Kirschbaum. Is she still here?
No.
Back.
For last Saturday, she had this meeting down at in the library, and we had over 100 people there come in and talk about what we can do to improve Crookston. And I think it was wards 1, 4, and 5 were the whole city. Yeah, but one's ward. You talked about having one formed. Excuse me. Yes.
There was a table, right? There was a table that dealt with that, Don.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a good turnout, and we really got some good ideas, and you're going to put it up on the city, so people can look at it and see what we can do for all the awards in the city. So, thank you, Carrie. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Nothing more tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Tim?
The I Love Crookston event that Carrie and her team and Shannon Stasson put together was remarkable. It really was. I was there for the first 2 hours, and I met people that are new families to our community, and they expressed the reasons why they chose to live in our community, and that really resonated with me in regards to the vision that we have to continue making Crookston a warm, welcoming, livable, safe community. I also want to give kudos to all of the folks that participated in Giving Hearts Day. Some wonderful organizations in Crookston were funded by generous donations from our community members. So kudos to everybody that was able to give a little extra to our well-deserving not-for-profit agencies. And that's it.
Thanks, Tim. Morgan?
I also went to the I Love Crookston thing, and Carrie and team, so thank you for putting that on. That was great, and it was fun to see the whole map, and it was fun to walk through the map and see all the ideas that everyone in the community had put. Also, Friday, Carrie hosted a constituent meeting with Senator Johnson to kind of introduce the Empower Crookston initiative, which was great. It was great to see all the different players that Carrie has pulled together to get a better understanding and idea, and to introduce that to Senator Johnson. Also there, it was exciting. We got to meet the new owners of the American Inn, and so they seemed like some great guys, and I'm excited to have them in our community. And then also, just for everybody that's here and listening, the Crookston Area Community Fund is currently open for grants. These are available for nonprofit and different government organizations. I think we have $25,000 in the fund this year, and you can apply, and the grants can be up to $10,000 based on the need there. The deadline to get that in is by April 1st. So I believe you can get the application online. I feel like there's an application here at the city, so there's a couple different ways. I know the applications have been posted on different places on Facebook. So these are some great, if anybody has some great ideas on what they can do for our community, please fill out that application and send it in.
There are applications here.
That's exciting. So. That is all I have.
Thank you. Christie?
I too was at the I Heart Crookston event, and it was really exciting to see. I'd love to see more input too, and maybe even more diverse group of individuals in our community. And I know that Carrie is working on some things to reach out to those groups as well. But overall, I think it was a wonderful event. I had the opportunity to meet with the head of the U of M that was there, and just some of Mary. Yep, and she was a delight to talk with, but also just kind of like working through some of the ideas and how we can become more interconnected as a city, and what that provides us in providing more opportunities for our city and growing was really exciting. And I think that it really, I think, resonates with this council specifically about really growing our community, growing our economic development, and really making this a place to be. So I really appreciated that, and thank you to you and your team for doing that.
If I can just quick add.
Yeah.
So we're talking about these events. When we get your input on paper and we get it into our comprehensive plan and we get it into our future visions type statements, then that gives all of us opportunities to go after funding. If we go to a funding body and I say I want a grant to put in a street and we've never talked about it in a public meeting and you've never given us input on what you want, of course we have now tonight, but if you don't tell us what you like, then I can't get funding for it. I'm going to be way down. So that's why it's important that you fill out a survey, or you let us know what you want to see, or you have a great idea, because that helps us to be able to go after funding. It helps the council to make better decisions on where they want their dollars to go. When I come to them and I say, we have a grant, but I'm going to need a $500,000 match, they can say, well, the community has been in support of it, so then we can go after extra funding. You know, it's just a whole bunch of government speak, but it's really important that you talk and that we get to listen to you.
Thank you.
Very good.
The other thing I had, the CVB is now meeting, like, I guess the second Tuesday? Tuesday. Yeah, I think it's Tuesday now.
Yeah, now
Tomorrow.
it's Tuesday.
Yeah, it's now changed to Tuesday, and we're meeting at the Shanty going forward. So that'll be tomorrow's meeting. I just also wanted to ask, I'm looking at the Baker Tilly stuff about deadlines, and I'm wondering if this is accurate, because I'm noticing on here that the outreach for candidates would have been November and screening would have been December, and then bringing them on would have been January, February. So has that been delayed?
Our interviews was, council wishes was to bring them in when there's no snow.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought we were going off of the timeline that was presented. So is there a different timeline that we should be?
I believe there is, Baker Tilly.
Can you share that with us?
If I could, yes. They were the ones who set up the interview times. They altered that timeline on their own.
Okay.
I had been in contact with our representative saying, what are you going to do on timeline? That's when she scheduled the interviews with council and with department heads, and then said, once the profile has been completed, and it is now completed, I think that was last Thursday, they would be advertising for 30 days.
Okay, so has that been sent out already then?
What do you?
The advertising or the job description?
I don't know that. The profile was just completed last Thursday. I don't know. She hasn't communicated. It's out, it's not out. That was on her to get back and say, it's out.
Okay.
This is the deadline.
So can I ask you to ask her to give us an updated deadline or timeline, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Could we also, Corky, get a copy of the profile?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you.
We made it, she sent it to me, made a few minor corrections, and it was out that same day.
Anything else, Christie?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Henry?
Nothing for me, Your Honor.
Thank you. Just a couple things. A lot of council already touched on it. I don't know, was it called the Carbon Reduction Initiative out at Valley Tech? Yeah. Mark Johnson was there. He was hoping for a good start of the session down in St. Paul, so he's optimistic. Also attended the Why We Love Crookston I didn't want to take off my shoes, so I had someone else put my stickers down, but, I just, I want to thank everybody that came to the public hearings tonight. I've just got a question. I don't know if Rich could answer it or Corky. Instead of assessing each property, like on different things, whether it's sidewalk or they've got more footage for curb and gutter, if we could set the 30% for the entire project, would the cost being assessed come in cheaper for homeowners if we assess 30% over the entire project versus,
50% for the sidewalks?
well, if we.
That's what you're asking?
Well, yeah, I don't know, if we assess.
And then assess it not just on the abutting, but all of the property.
Exactly.
And those are things we'll be looking at with Rich under our policies.
Just asking question. I don't know if it would come in any cheaper for assessments for the overall project.
And we can take a look at that.
It's worth looking at.
I'd be curious to hear what Ellers has to say tomorrow too.
Right.
And how they've utilized that in the past, so I think that'll be an important meeting.
So, I don't know, even doing street projects, maybe we gotta take a hard look at the bonding and maybe do more projects if the price would come in cheaper for assessments for everybody. I'm not sure what the answer is there. Instead of doing a block or two a year or 3 blocks, whatever we do, if we did more, would we get a better price? Or would the assessments come in cheaper on, I don't know, something to look into.
Well, and can we also, when we're at that, having that discussion, look at, have some information about different surface materials? So, just an example, I know that a neighbor of mine couldn't do a concrete driveway, but he used, I think it was repurposed asphalt. So, that when they come in to redo our streets, they take up all the asphalt and they do something to it that makes it like they do with tennis shoes for basketball courts, you know what I mean? So, I think there are other materials that may be well-suited for our purposes that aren't like gold. Concrete, if there's anybody in the community that wants to start a business, start a concrete business. So just for consideration for our later discussions, look into those materials maybe.
Okay, well, yeah, that's all I've got tonight. Just a reminder, we are having a closed Ways and Means meeting tonight, so nothing else to come before council. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody that attended.
Thank you, everybody.